Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Comics 101. I'm Big Dog. Glad to be here. My co-host, the Almighty One, will be in shortly. Um, Glad you guys could join us. I know it's been a while. We're being sporadic with this show. That's my fault. I am working on that. Hopefully, we're going to try and do this once a month. I might switch it to a Tuesday, but other than that, I'm glad you guys could be here. Uh, so background, Almighty and myself have both been collecting comics for decades, and we just want to share our thoughts and our knowledge that we've learned throughout the years on this. And hopefully you guys will be joining us. Really didn't put this one out um, on Facebook only because of the problem that we had with our last show, which unfortunately we had to scrub um, from all platforms because we had an idiot guy that came on, and it was my fault that I let him on. I didn't know him, but we were talking comics. We were having a good conversation going. He had some input in the comic session, asked to come on, and as soon as I let him on, he put a lot of vulgar stuff uh, in the show. So we immediately kicked him out as soon as we could. But by that point, it was already too late. So we decided just to scrub the show. We didn't want to harm NDB Media, who is gracious enough to let us use this platform for this show. So we didn't want any problems there. So we decided just to scrub the show completely. And other things that have happened since then. So it was a little more than a month ago. So we decided to give it a shot again. And like I said, hopefully my co-host will be joining me very shortly. Um, we are going to be probably touching on the ages of comics, Golden Age, Silver Age, and why there hasn't really been a new age for about 30 years. Every 10 or 12 years, they would issue in another age, from golden to silver, silver to bronze, bronze. And that's where it gets kind of hazy, depending on who you go with. After the Bronze Age, uh, some places just go straight into modern, and modern starts, oh, I don't know, about 1990 or so, maybe, to now. So it's been a long time, and we'll have to see. Thank you for the like, Stud Muffin. I'm not sure if he's going to be listening or not, but um, hopefully maybe he'll join us and give us a little insight on his comic knowledge. Um, as I said, I'm waiting for the Mighty to come in. Hopefully he'll be in very shortly. Otherwise, guys, this is going to be a shorter show, um, just because we usually bounce uh, talking off of each other so we can get a good conversation going. Um, as I said, with the ages of comics, depending on, depending on who you go with, there are either just four ages or there's about 6 to 7 ages of comics. Um, and let me see, I have this pulled up 1 second. Sorry, guys. Uh, most of my notes. Uh, yeah. See, so depending on who you go with, a lot of people consider the golden age from 1938, which of course would be when Superman first made his debut, to 1956, which usually ushered in. That's when they kind of went away from the war comics and more into the love and romance comics. Excuse me, guys. So sorry. Getting over a cold. Um, and then, of course, in 1956, that's when they kind of ushered in the Silver Age with a Flash 105, and brought about a lot of the superheroes the way we know them, the way they're portrayed in the cartoons, Justice League, and so on and so forth. And pretty much in the movies also, they're all the Silver Age heroes and villains. And that went from 56 to 70, and then from there 70 to 85 was considered the Bronze Age, and that brought you in X-Men, Wolverine, DC Comics, brought in a lot of their newer characters. Um, and then from 85, then it was considered the modern age. Um, and we haven't had anything since then, from 1985 till now. So you're looking at 40 plus years, almost 40 years of not having a new age ushered in. And that's what most people think. But as I said, depending on who you go by, I believe the Overstreet Guide um, has more ages and they get more in depth. Um, they start with the Platinum Age, which of course was before 1935. There was also the Victorian Age, which was when they first realized the first published comic book, I believe, was The Yellow Kid in 18, oh, I can't remember, it was 1878 or 1898. Um, and of course, then it was the Golden Age. Um, they break it down a little bit different. So from the Golden Age, it runs from 35 to 47. So the years are a little bit different. From 47 to 58, they consider it the Atomic Age, which were post-war comics, and they did a lot of romance, true crime, westerns, the risque good girl comics, and horror, which is EC Comics and that type of those type of books, which are very much in demand now in high grades. After that, of course, then it was the Silver Age, which I explained. That's when it's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, all those characters that we know that we've seen in cartoons, TV shows, movies. That's where they base their characters from. From there, then it jumps to the Bronze Age, which was on this one they considered 70 to 85, and that's when Jack Kirby. That was the most significant part. Jack Kirby moved from Marvel to DC, um, and he created his fourth world characters and so on and so forth, and kind of invigorated DC Comics. They were always lagging behind, and he kind of gave a jolt that they needed with a lot of his artwork and his storytelling, and of course brought it, ushered in a bunch of artists that just that we know now are legends. Neil Adams, uh, um, George Perez, uh, uh, just the list goes on and on. There's way too many people to. I don't want to detract from that by missing some people. From there, after the Bronze Age, they went with the Copper Age, which was 85 to 2000, and that's usually when about the time the direct market took over. Um, Back in the day when I was a kid and stuff, the only way you can get comics was local 7-Eleven or whatever liquor store or whatever that had the comic rack. Um, and they decided around in the 80s, mid 80s, to go with direct comics, which meant it was shipped directly to a comic book shop, which there weren't that many of brick and mortar stores um, back in the day, and those were considered specialty stores, and all they did was sell the comics. And of course, they were in much better shape because if you guys all remember, even they got comics as a kid, they just stuffed the comics in the rack and they would get bent over and damaged and so on and so forth. But of course, as a child, you just, you saw your favorite character, whoever it was, Flash, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, whoever it was, you were just happy to get that copy. But of course, some of the people that were smart back then that wanted to preserve their comics, they were trying to get the best type. So, and plus, it was easier to get the actual sales count correct, um, shipping it directly to a comic shop. Because everything, of course, everything is based on sales. So of course, you have great sales, either increase the quantity per month, or if they're having bad sales, either decrease it or just continue the issue itself. So that was a big thing. And then of course that during that time, that was also the big break from Marvel by McFarlane, Jim Lee, um, geez, all the names are escaping me right now. The Valentino, and a few of the others that went out and formed Image Comics, and they did that because they felt they were not being compensated enough for characters they created, but Marvel was making a ton of money off of, but weren't compensating the creators of the particular character. So they got fed up, and it was all the major artists um, and writers, and they all left. I think there was seven of them, and they went and they formed Image Comics, and of course the rest is history with that. And of course at that time, that's when DVDs, the VHS sales of cartoons really started to grow, and the indie market really started to grow. So it, it, um, underground comics and indie comics have been around forever, and but it was always a small niche type of book. But back then, around the mid '80s to early '90s, that's when the black and white comics started being more prevalent, and that's when we started getting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Hellboy, those type of books that were bucking the system, that they were doing it themselves because there wasn't you know a major boss trying to tell you what to do and how to do it. These creators wanted to do it themselves, so they went out and did the indie thing. And even though production was very low, they made their mark. And of course now, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, first Hellboy and stuff, those go for thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. Um, because in that case they were so rare. So not only are you lucky to find them, those issues, those original issues, but to find them in a high grade, the percentages are really low, and that's why a lot of people went to CGC and well now CBCS. The CGC was around oh geez, maybe around right around the 2000s. They came about, about encapsulating and preserving books. A lot of comic shop owners were against it. They didn't um, believe in it only because they had the attitude of comics are meant to be read and touched and felt and turn the pages and the smell of the comic and so on and so forth. But CGC, who was the only really game at the time, they realized that if you preserve the comic, it'll stay in that graded um, whatever grade it was given. Now, at the time, of course, when you're buying and selling, you're a comic shop owner or collector. If you're a comic shop owner and you have your comic, let's say, priced at $1,000, and you say it's in very fine and mint condition, of course, you're pushing it that how great the comic is. But if I'm the buyer, I'm looking at, oh no, look at the spine. The spine has ticks in it, and there's a chip here and chip there, and blah blah blah. So it's a negotiation on pricing. What CGC did is they gave it the grade, and they're a third party company that has nothing to do with comics, at least at the time. They didn't have anything to do with comics, and you just ship them to them. They put the grade on it, and that was the grade, and there's no disputing that. So then that's why a lot of people started grading their books so they could get the maximum value out of it. And of course, having it encapsulated um, also increases the value of the comic. Um, these last couple of years with the pandemic and stuff, that has gone way out of control as far as the amount of comics that are being sent in to be graded and encapsulated. And I think what people did is since they couldn't go out and do anything, they just started sending their books in to be graded. I mean, books that have no significant um, reason to be graded, I guess, kind of to say. And by that I mean it wasn't a first appearance, it wasn't the death of, or it wasn't, the debut of, or something happened in that book that's significant that you would want it preserved. People were just sending books in just to get them graded, and try and flip them. So, um, but we'll talk about that on a later show. Is the what's been happening these last 3 4 years. But so like I said, we're into the 2000s. So Image has become the number three company in the United States behind Marvel and DC. Behind Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson, Jim Lee, Valentino, all those guys. Bringing out their own books. Spawn and Savage Dragon and Rob Liefeld. I forgot about Liefeld. He's bringing out his Brigade and all his books. So they became a very known commodity in the comic business. So things pushed from there. Um, this one I don't quite agree with. They call it the Plastic Age, and they say that's from 2000 to 2020. Um, and that's according to this, everybody, uh, all the young people that collected as children and teens were now in their late 20s to early 30s, and they had money. So when they call it the plastic age, it's because everybody paid by credit card. All the books that mom threw away as a kid, or that they just lost interest of and gave away, whatever the reason, they wanted their childhood back in essence, and they were willing to pay for it. So uh, everybody paid by credit card. So they call it the like I said, the plastic age. I don't quite agree with that one, but for now, I guess we'll use it as a placeholder. And from now, starting in 2020, they're having what's called, and this is a new one, I hadn't seen it, and this is actually brand new. They call it the Pixel Age, and that's because everybody has been switching over to digital comics, which I personally disagree with. I do have stuff on ebooks, but um, and rumors are right now that the new owners of DC Comics uh, are, of course, they want to sell. They don't want to be in the comic book business anymore. So they're looking to get out. There's a lot of rumors that excuse me, Disney will buy DC Comics, which would then make them DC and Marvel owned by them. There's also a lot of talk that Amazon might get into that and put in a bid, but they haven't been put up officially for sale. So DC Comics is still with what is the Time Warner Discovery, that umbrella that they're under. But the one thing that they do, there is a big rumor, and it looks like they're pushing that way. Is they DC Comics, the owners of DC Comics, want to move away from the actual paper comic book. That it's too expensive, the process, the shipping, the whole thing, and they want to switch everything to digital. So it'll only be digital comics on the DC side. I don't see that happening, but as a collector and a fan of comics, I would hate for that to happen because I like having the actual comic in my hand rather than on your iPad or computer or your e-reader, whatever it may be. It's just not the same. But I could see it financially for the owners of DC Comics that they would go that way. There are, of course, ebooks out. I mean, electronic comics out there now, but they usually sell uh, at the same time. Usually, Marvel had, at least they were doing it before. I'm not sure if they still are, but for a while, you could buy the comic, and I believe it was the regular cover, and then there was another cover that was $1 more, but that included the digital code you would get the digital comic on the Marvel.com platform that they had. I'm not sure they're still doing that, but the fact is, there's thousands of comics out there right now. You can buy them anywhere if that is your way that you want to read your books is, through, it's it's easy to, have it on your phone or on your tablet. And, and anytime you have your downtime, you could just go to your e-reader and read your comics. Um, but like I said, I'm old school and I love having the actual comic in my hand, turn the pages and stuff. Um, Kind of hard sometimes when, because I do have some CGC slabs and CGCS, some of the older stuff, but that's more for preservation than anything else. Um, that would be the only way I would say, sure, have your, ebook, or, if you have a collection that's encapsulated, so of course you can't read it, if you're not familiar with the story, you go and you get your ebook. So things like that. But the comic book ages, they're really, they like to come up with new names every so often. But like I said, depending on who you talk to and who you listen to, they pretty much said that the modern age has been around since 1985, and that is an extremely long time to have an age. As I said, usually everything was 12 to 14 years, and then they would usher in a new age and a name for it. But now they haven't for whatever reason. So um, my co-host, which I guess isn't coming on, so we're going to be ending this pretty soon. Uh, he and I were just going to go back and forth and maybe try and figure out why they haven't called it a new age, or these other ages I just mentioned, if they're accurate or not. So a lot of collecting goes on, you know, either way. The comic book business is not going to go away. There's been a lot of talk. Oh, comics have been supposedly disappearing off the face of this earth for the last 20 years or more. That it's a lost hobby, but it's not. Um, Records are being broken almost on every auction that's out there through Heritage, which of course is one of the main one probably. Also, Comic Connect, Comic Connection. They all have their quarterly auctions. They also have weekly auction. I mean, excuse me, monthly auctions or bi-monthly auctions. And usually in like what I follow religiously, uh, Comic Connection, they have their, excuse me, Comic Link, sorry. Comic Link usually breaks records whenever they do what's called a focused auction, which I believe they have 3 times a year. And that's usually when they bring out their premium, high grades of books, Golden Age, Silver Age. And I believe there was a Amazing Fantasy 15, which of course was Spider-Man. I can't remember if it was Comic Link or if it was Heritage that sold a 9.6, and I believe it went for $3 million. The previous record was a million, and that was a few years ago. Of course, the usual, the bringing that kind of money, usually more than $2 million. Usually, Action Comics 1, Detective 27, Batman 1, um, Superman 1, in extremely high grades, because those books are now 75, almost 80 years old, and they're more and more scarce. And to find a high grade copy, I believe the Action Comics 1 that sold for 3.5 or $3.7 million. That was a 9.6. I had never seen anything higher than, I believe, a 9.0, and I think I only saw that once. So those grades are out there, and I guess people, because of the pandemic or however they feel the economy is going, a lot of people are selling their extremely high grade, uh, extremely collectible comics. If you have the money and you're willing to put it down, it's a a lot of people may disagree with me, but I believe it's a safe investment. Now, if you're going to go spend 3.5, $3.7 million, it may be a little while before you get your money back, but you never know because, as I said, a high grade comic like that, and you sit on it for 3 years, the way comics go, I don't see it going down. I see making a profit off that $3.6 million. You know, Other comics are between 50,000 to 100,000, anything pretty much 10,000 and over. Um, if if you're a collector, the thing to collect or to buy every year, of course, is the Overstreet Price Guide. That's the Bible for comics, and it's a wealth of information in there, and of course, the price guide. Um, a lot of people complain because the price, this only comes out once a year, so a lot of the prices they feel are outdated, but it is still a base to go off of, and you see the options and what they're getting. And the thing is, they have a year by year comparison. So if the book usually comes out around San Diego Comic Con, so around end of July is the new book for the year. And if you bought it this year, you could see the 2021 sales or the prices for the top in the Golden Age section of it. There is a top 100 Golden Age books, and from there, I believe it's top 50 Silver Age, top 50 Bronze Age, and then it's usually top 20 of all the other ages or westerns or so on and so forth. And in those top 100, I don't think I've ever seen a minus on a year-to-year difference. Usually, the jump is anywhere from 3.5 to 10% or more. So their comics are a solid investment if you're willing to wait. If you're a flipper or someone that wants to uh, to earn some extra money really fast, comics may not be the way to go because you do unless it's modern and you're just doing real quick stuff. Where you're buying a book for $10 and selling it for 50 or 70 or whatever, or. But the problem is when you do that, there's a lot of speculation that goes on in there, and if you're 50-50 on your speculation, you're doing a great job. But for the most part, it's all a guessing game on what's going to be hot at one particular time. But older books, copper, bronze, silver, golden, those are always in demand. Key books are always in demand in those ages. And even minor key books or just someone that wants to fill their collection. Those books always sell, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They sell no matter what. So, uh, if you're into investing, that's a great thing. There's also different ways, directions you go in the comic collecting area. A lot of people, it's been really popular, especially the last 5, 7 years. People get commissions from artists and, sketch covers or regular commissions on 9 by 12 paper. Or if you have a little more money, you get the 11 by 17s. Um, and what's become very, very popular over the last maybe 5 years is, I mean, it's always been popular, but I mean, it's really been popular. It's grown in popularity. Is original comic book art, where you get the actual pages that the artist and or penciler drew, and we'll go into that on another show. The difference between original art, between pencils, between inks over pencils, what's called a blue line, a gray line. I'll explain all that probably 2 shows from now. Maybe the next one, but we'll see. But original art is the way to go. It's great to have because it's one of a kind. That's why commissions have been very popular lately. When you go to the artist and you commission them to draw whatever you want, and of course, depending on the artist, your scorekeeper's going to love this one. Your Jim Lees of the world or your Todd McFarlane's of the world are going to charge a premium because they're at the top of the business. They're going to charge for just a simple head sketch. I believe Jim Lee charges $1,200 or $1,500 for a simple head sketch in pencil only. Um, Todd McFarlane, he's actually, I don't believe he actually does commissions, so I maybe I should have included him in that. Usually, if you can get something from him, he'll do it for free, but it's very far and few and in between. It's whenever, it tickles his fancy that, oh, I'm going to draw something this time. Instead of just a signature, I'm going to draw something. So, but, you have people like Joe Sienkiewicz or unfortunately, those who passed away, Adams, George $5,000. George Perez loved his fans, and for a 9 by 12 hit, or 9 by 12, I think it was 11 by 17. He was charging 400, $450. Look at that. It was $450 for a 9 by 12, 11 by 17. He would do it. It would be a full body, pencils and inks, and that was $1,200. But of course, George Perez is a legend. I mean, he's on the Mount Rushmore in my opinion. Artist of all time. So, but depending on who you're going for, you're going by simple commissions. You can get them as cheap as $50. Or depending on who you're trying to get. I mean, it could cost you thousands of dollars. The difference though with original art, as I said, with original art, it's the actual, uh, what they sent into the comic book company to have it printed into a comic. You know, so you get the original artwork from that, and it's one of one. It was pencils. It was pencils and inks. It's still usually one of one. What's called a gray line. Like I said, we'll get on into all that. The gray line is a little bit different. Then that's in the last maybe 15 years. Gray lines and blue lines came into existence. Otherwise, before, anything that you can get on original art that has the word bubbles, that's usually all original pencils and inks because the faxes and the way to do that wasn't around back then. And once again, I'll explain that on our next show. But it, comics is a great investment. And, whether you're collecting the books itself, whether you want them raw, which is like often off right off the shelf, where you have them graded, which is encapsulated, and the two top companies right now are CGC and CGCS, and that preserves your comic, or you go by the way of original art by the artist. You either get a commission, or you get the actual comic book pages or artwork that turned into a cover. Uh, it's 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 nice to see something. I have original art pages, and it's nice to see the art page, and then you buy the comic. If you decide you want to frame it or just to have it there, you buy that particular comic book, and of course the page is in there, and you see what you have originally versus the book itself. So that's a nice thing to have. But unfortunately, my co-host I guess couldn't join me today, so we're gonna cut this short, guys. We get a half hour. Next show, I promise, will be in about 1 month. I might switch to a Tuesday night instead. But other than that, we are going to go at least an hour, and I'm going to have more notes, and I kind of know what direction I want to go in. I just wanted to get the feel to go back on again, guys. I used to do this regularly about 10 years ago. Um, Life has gotten away, and I wanted to start it up, and just different things were happening, and I haven't been able to do this regularly. I'm gonna try my best to do this regularly, so we should be on in about 1 month. So the third week of November, and it's yeah, either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I'm hoping for a Tuesday. That's what I'm gonna shoot for. Just because other things are going on Wednesdays that kind of convoluted, and I want to give all my time. So in case you need to go long or go on earlier or whatever, I can do it. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Um, Thomas, thank you for the shout out and the like. And I will talk to you guys soon. And thanks a lot. And like I said, I'll see you in about 1 month. All right. Thank you much. Take care, guys.